Good morning, everyone. How are we doing? It may not be morning when you're watching this. Okay, it is for me. Well, what am I talking about today? Well, who are you talking to? Strange question. But one that, as speakers, we really need to jump on board with. Because if you don't know who you're talking to, how do you know how to say what you want to get across? It's all about those words, isn't it? You know, your words have power, because you want to be speaking the same language as the people that you are wanting to communicate with. Now, English is my primary language, and I learnt it as a native growing up in the UK. I absolutely honour all of you guys who have learned English as an additional language, because it really is not an easy one to learn if you don't grow up with it. So hats off to you. Well done, you. But the thing is, English is different in different parts of the world. We have different phrases. Even within the same country, the same thing can be described in different ways. There are different dialectal words. So if you are, say, in one part of the country, you might call an item one thing. I'm reminded of when I grew up in England. I had the fun and games of going to school in Devon, having grown, well, the first 5-6 years in my life in Hertfordshire. Now, if you're not from the UK, this won't mean anything to you. But it's important for a little 6-year-old to know what you put on your feet when you do your gym work. Now, in Hertfordshire, they're plimsolls. In Devon, they're daps. Daps. I didn't understand that word. As a 6-year-old, that's a little discombobulating. But it goes on. When you go to other parts of the country, different things are called different things. And when you go to different parts of the world, well, here we go. I'm collecting all sorts of names. In the UK, most of the places I've been in call flip-flops. You know, the bits of rubbery plastic with a toe post and things come up. You slip them on, you go down to the beach, da, da, da. Flip-flops. Oh, no. In Australia, they are thongs, which to somebody in the UK is a form of underwear. Strange. In New Zealand, those are jangles. I've also heard some people in the UK call them sliders. Here in Malaysia, they're called slippers. All for the same item. So this is where I'm going with this. Who are you talking to? You need to know the language to use. Now, that's a very simplistic way of putting it, but turns of phrase, idioms, acronyms, leave those out. But it turns of phrase. I was doing a podcast a few weeks ago with a gentleman who is based, he lives here in Malaysia, but his ideal audience, his population that he talks to on his podcast is primarily US based. He grew up in the US. And I was explaining a bit about my story, how I had been rejected from university 2 years on the trot, didn't know what I was going to do. And somebody had said to me, Wendy, I don't know how you can keep your pecker up. As in, keep your head above, keep smiling, basically. It comes from birds pecking. So when your pecker is your beak, so you keep your beak up, you're still maintaining that I can do this way of thinking. Well, apparently it means something very different to the American market. And he sat across the table from me with an eyebrow raised and a bit of a smirk on his face and said, I think you mean something different to what it means in America. Cultural faux pas. My first networking meeting when I arrived in Australia, somebody complimented me on my pants. Now, in the UK, pants are what you wear next to your skin. I thought my flies were undone. So I excused myself and went off to the ladies and checked out what was going on. They were fine. What was all that about? Composed myself, went back into the room. Somebody who had witnessed this and knew I was kind of fresh off the boat sidled up to me and said, "You know, she was talking about your trousers, don't you?" I went bright red again, thinking, why didn't I know that? If I'd been in America, if I'd been in Canada, I would have known that pants meant trousers. I did not know that for Australia. Can you see where I'm going with this? Knowing who your audience is really important in the way you phrase things. I was talking with a coach who was fresh out of coaching college, and he wanted to do career coaching. So I said, who is your target audience? Who are you wanting to work with? Oh, he said, anybody in transition, anyone from 18 up to retirement age. And I said to him, okay, would you use the same words? Would you use the same language with your mates? He was in his early 20s, as you would with your granny. Ah, came the reply. Probably not. Again, it's important to know who you're speaking to. So where's this all leading me? Where's this leading you? The invitation is to be very clear on who your target audience is when you're speaking, because that will influence what you say and how you say it. The content may still be the same regardless of whichever demographic you use, but the languaging will be specific. Now, very often, we were talking about last week, we have an intention, we have a purpose behind why we're speaking. And if your intention is to lead somebody, invite somebody to go from their stuck place where they're at now and they do not want to be there, to going to where they do want to be, knowing who you're speaking to is very important, because you can then, and we'll talk about this next time, you can then think about, well, how is it that they are languaging? How are they speaking about? How are they describing their stuck point? Because if you, as a speaker, can reflect back to them their own thoughts, hello, you get me, you understand me, I'm going to trust you, because literally you're speaking my language. And then if you can describe where you take them, the transformation that you offer as part of what you're saying, whether you are inspiring them to do X, Y, Z, whether you're asking them to come along the journey with you in a form of a book, in the form of a program, whatever it is, knowing who you're speaking to is really important. Now, you can do this. I mean, this is the classic avatar thing, but you can do that in terms of a demographic. You know, give them a name, give them an age, give them a socioeconomic group, give them an occupation, what's their relationship status, all of that stuff. And for me, which is even more important, is where are they stuck? What's their pain point? Because if you can talk to that, well, again, we'll talk about more about this in the next video. If you can talk more about that, then you are really connecting. Think about it. Who do you want to speak to? Because if what you're offering may very well be able to be accessed by everybody, and everybody needs it. Yes, of course they do. But unless you're speaking to specific people, you're not going to get anywhere, because the sort of throwing the spaghetti at the wall in terms of your language, it doesn't carry any weight. It's fluff. We want to be an arrow. We want to really pierce the armor of the person that you're speaking to. They want to know that you understand them. So again, I go back to my point. Who are you speaking to? Really sit and work that one out. Because if it's for everybody, nobody will pick it up. The more specific you can be, the better. Because even if people think, well, if I go for say one person, I'm going to be excluding everybody else. Well, you'd be surprised. No, you don't. Because by being that clear on your one target person, your one target problem, if you will, if you can language it so clearly, there'll be people on the outside. If you can imagine this is your bullseye, there will be people in the outside rings who recognize your clarity. They recognize you as being an authority, and they'll still want to come and play with you. So again, I invite you to really nut it out. Who is it you're speaking to? If you want some help with this, this is part of my 9 Pillars of Influential Communication program. So if you want some help with this, DM me below, let me know, and we can jump on a call and see where we go from here. Invitation this week, nut out. Who is it I'm speaking to? Get very clear on that for yourself, because when you're clear and you connect head and heart to that one person, to that one problem, it's going to make such a difference in how effective you are as a communicator. There we go. That's what I got for you this week. Now, next week, I will be uploading a pre-recorded video because I shall be in a different time zone and actively doing something else at this time. So watch out for that next week, but it will be coming up, not as a live, but it will be coming up as a pre-recorded one, and we'll be talking more about the pain and the gain. Okay, so have an awesome week. See you next week.